Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I am Tran Mendez with the Center for Teaching and Learning, and today we have Dr. James Gigliello. He is an NCU alumni, and he is going to be going over publishing your research, pitfalls and promises, and just a couple of housekeeping items. Along the way, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to use the Q&A box or use the chat box to ask your question. When James pauses, I will go ahead and ask your question for you so that you get your answers. And then I will also have this recording posted in the Center for Teaching and Learning within the next 24 hours, along with the PowerPoint slides. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to James.
Hi, everybody. Now you get to see what I look like in real time, so to speak. I'm not going to keep the video on because my internet connection is a little unstable. And by keeping the video on, I'm using more bandwidth. I live in Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, and we still do not have fiber optics. We have the old 4 colored wires, the green, the red, the white, and the black. So we're still on that from the last century. So as a result of that, my internet connection sometimes is terrible. But I wanted to let you know that Tran has the PowerPoint slides. If I cut out, Tran will notice that and just tell you that in 35, 45 seconds, I will be calling back on my telephone, signing in from there. And as I said, she has all the slides. So we are all set to go, even if the internet decides to give me grief. So with this, I'm going to take off the video so I'm saving bandwidth. Here we go. Publishing your research, pitfalls and promises. You'll notice that I didn't use the NCU logo. I didn't use anything of NCU. I'm not a faculty member there, and I'm not a student anymore. So I don't have to abide by those rules. And to be honest with you, when I saw the dinosaur, that's exactly how I felt. And to be perfectly frank with you, I found it much more aggravating to get it published than to do the dissertation itself. So I felt like a dinosaur ready to bite anything that got in my way. Hence the reason I'm using these slides. And I wanted to make this more of a conversation and fun, because this isn't a research thing. This is not a study. This is not an analysis of a study. This is not research. I'm just giving you what I went through in November and December to get my research published. Tran, could you move to the next slide? Okay, so your dissertation has been completed. You've broken your back, sleepless nights, crying, hitting the pillow, breaking a dish or two, getting angry at everybody. Now what? So are you interested in being published? I mean, there are many people that don't want to be bothered. They feel that they've done their work, they've graduated, they're out of the school, and they're done. But what I say is take some time off. Obviously, when you get your dissertation and you're finished, you don't have to get your work published right away. I didn't. I waited about a year. I needed to have a break from going back to my paper and trying to get my work published, because it is really an arduous task. I had no idea it was that difficult. Now, the pros and cons, well, to be honest with you, there's lots of pros. What I have found out in my own journey is that even though the dissertation opens up doors for you, even though the PhD opens up doors for you, this takes it to a whole new level. From experience. I'm now invited to go to conferences. I'm now invited to give my opinion on different pieces of research simply because I'm published in a peer-reviewed journal. So there's a lot of pros. As for the cons, aggravation, annoyance, sleepless nights, anger, frustration. Sometimes you feel a little hopeless, like, you know, I did all this work for nothing and nobody wants me. I mean, that's the way you feel. But there are a lot more pros. in looking back on it now, I'm glad I did it, because I now get invited to different events here in South Florida. And just recently, in the last, since last Friday, 5 days ago, I have now been invited to do a video conference with a therapy group in Southern California, in Beverly Hills, the Triune Therapy Group. And the founder of that, Dr. Kate Balistreri, for some reason, she found my work and she contacted me, and she is meeting with me. She's coming down to Florida. She wants to open up an office in Miami, and she wants my consult. And she wants me to write a blog every month, and she wants me to present my research in a video format so that she can put it on her website, which is seen throughout the state of California and most of the West. So it seems that once you get published, it's like a domino effect. One thing leads to the next, that leads to the next, that leads to the next, that leads to the next. This would have never happened, even with my dissertation in ProQuest, even though I have my PhD. It took it to a whole new level when I said I'm published and it's in a journal. It just changes everything. What to expect? As I said, aggravation, absolute aggravation. The differences and similarities in the journals, that's depending on your field and your area of expertise. I can tell you that in my area, my dissertation was written about HIV, gay men, and HIV stigma and resilience. So you have to pick journals that are specific to what it is you're doing. As I said, I don't know much about business, but you would pick something in your area of business or IT, or in psychology, organizational, industrial, addictions, counseling. There are many journals that are devoted to the different aspects of psychology. For instance, I belong to the American Psychological Association, and in addition, I belong to Division 44, which is the Division of Sexual Orientation and Gender Diversity, and I also belong to Division 2, which is the Division of Teaching Psychology. So I decided to belong to the organization as a whole, and then these two specific areas within the organization. And many of you have seen my post that I am presenting my poster at the APA National Convention in Washington, D.C. this August. And that is specifically going to Division 44, the Division of Sexual Orientation and Gender Diversity. So, and that's another thing. Would my abstract have been accepted if I wasn't published? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. Are there any questions at this point?
There are. The first question is, can I still publish even though I completed it 2 years ago?
Yes. If you're filling a gap in literature, you can. And even if you're adding to the body of knowledge within your topic, you certainly can, because you're going to have a different slant than some other research. So go for it.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what is an example of aggravation that you experienced, please, and how best to overcome it?
Oh boy, it's the waiting is very aggravating. You can wait anywhere from a week to a month, and of course your mind starts to wander, thinking, "Oh, they don't want me. I don't know what's wrong with me. Why did I?" Yes.
You were cutting in and out just a little bit when you first began, so if you could just start that response again, please.
Okay, good old internet. It's
Thank you.
Sure. It's aggravating because people will make you wait. The reviewers have a lot of people to review, so you have to wait. And if you think you were frustrated waiting for your chair and your committee to answer you, this is worse because they make you wait longer. So that was the aggravation. And sometimes you feel that, why did I bother doing this? Because they're not responding to me, and you think you have the greatest work of all time, and they're treating you like nothing. So sometimes it's very hard because you worked your tail off to get this done. And it's when you're trying to get dissertation research published, it's very different than when you get research published as a researcher. Go ahead.
Okay, next, it's a comment, and it's from Dr. Fonseca. Wow, James, a pleasure hearing all your accomplishments. Never forget we are your family. I am proud of your effort to continue raising awareness on a very important topic, breaking boundaries, and most importantly, living. Kudos to you.
Thank you. And I appreciate all your posts to me in the comments. You do make me feel like family, and I want to thank you for that because all my family is gone. Thank you.
And then she also followed up to the person that asked about publishing 2 years after the fact. She also shared, you can even update it and present the same topic in different formats. Just make sure you follow the author guidelines of the publication or conference.
Yes. And just for the record, I published mine a year after. So I graduated in 2018 of August, and I published 2019. So, but I needed to get away from it for a while because my specific work was very intense. It was about a topic where I lost over 100 people to AIDS, and I was talking about HIV and HIV stigma with gay men who were HIV positive anywhere from 7 to 32 years. So I needed to get away from that topic to get a breather. But if you wanted, I wouldn't recommend waiting 5 years unless you are willing to do more research to update it. And that's why I did it so fast, because I did not want to go back and have to update it. Any others?
Yes, there's a couple more.
Okay.
The next one is, was your published work a subset of your dissertation, or was it the whole work?
Well, that I'm going to get into, but what you have to do is I had to take 180 pages and turn it into 20. So you want to talk about cutting the fat off, and you think that all of your dissertation is the meat. Well, when you're publishing, it's not meat anymore. A lot of that becomes fat. And in fact, all of my chapter 2, which was 56 pages, was taken out of my publication work completely. So there is no chapter 2 in my published work at all. Go ahead.
All right, a comment following up with that. That is interesting because I'm working on my dissertation, and it's good to know. Next two questions are, can I publish outside of a journal to get more of a commercial-based readership, such as publishing houses?
Yes, absolutely. I prefer to do a peer-reviewed journal because of my topic, because of the implications of it, and because of the fact that I wanted to raise awareness, and more academicians tend to read peer-reviewed journals than published, than what you had mentioned.
Thank you. And the last question so far is, what is the best way to select a publisher?
Well, you don't select the publisher, you select the journal. And then you have to deal with the people within the journal. And they don't call them publishers, they call them editors. So for instance, you would submit, and then an editor would then give your work anonymously to peer reviewers who do not have your name. So there's no bias like, oh, well, he's got a last name, or she's got a Hispanic name, or, oh, this name is Russian, or, oh, this one looks like they're Middle East. So the names are removed. So all the aspect and the body of your work, they do not get your name, address, school affiliation, nothing. Go ahead.
Great. And then one more question came through. Can you publish in more than one publication?
No. That's the shame of it. If the journal, like for instance, I'm in the Journal of AIDS and Clinical Research. That's it. If AIDS and Behavior came to me, or if Stigma and Research came to me, I'd have to tell them, I'm sorry, but I'm already published. So, And another thing, you can only apply to one journal at a time. So it can take months. And that's another aggravating and frustrating part. You can't send your work out to 5 or 6 journals. You can only send it to one. Once they've rejected you, then you send it out to number 2, and then number 3, and number 4. And by the way, I was rejected twice. So, and I had to do one at a time. Anything else, Tran?
Yes, one just came through. My dissertation comprises of 3 major topics, which can be a topic of its own. I was a bit ambitious. Is it okay to dissect my dissertation in those 3 different topics?
You sure can. In fact, you can do, if you can find a way to dissect it into 3 different topics with the research, you can submit it 3 times because it's not exactly the same. Now, I'm going to be doing a literature review on my work, so I'll be able to submit that. So you can do that.
Thank you. And then we have a comment. Wow, this is so good to know. Thank you for paving the way for us. And then another question is, are these open access journals?
That's up to you because you get to choose. And for instance, my journal is specifically open access. I wanted it to be open access so that the most people can get to read it. I didn't, because many of the Springer journals you have to pay for unless you're in school like NCU or I teach at St. Joseph's, I have access. But for instance, John Q. Public, who may want to know something, will have no access to the journal. So I made sure that when I was doing my research to choose a journal, I chose a journal that was absolutely 100% open access across the globe. Anything else, Tran?
Yes, 2 more came through.
Okay.
My chair wants me to find an editor. How do you go about it?
I'm assuming an editor for the dissertation. Well, I'm not allowed to post this in the Commons, but I'm an editor. I have edited over almost 30 dissertations. Now, I wouldn't be able to write that in the Commons. I'm not allowed to advertise for myself. But since this is not the Commons, and this is a separate entity from the Commons, I can gladly tell you that I do editing work. And if you wanted to message me privately, not publicly, and get my email privately through the Commons, you can email me privately and we can discuss that. But I cannot discuss that here.
Thank you. And then one last question before we move on is, what if I'm passionate about my dissertation topic and finish the research, but I haven't achieved my PhD? Can I still publish? Is that putting the cart before the horse?
That's a big gray area. You know what I would say? I would say go for it. That's just my opinion. But if you have, but you see, you have to have research unless you're doing a literature review. When you're doing a literature review, you don't need research. But if you're doing a dissertation publication, you have to have research attached to your paper. So you would have to decide, and again, you can send it in and they will simply reject you if they don't think it's appropriate. Next, please.
All right, the next question is, what if my dissertation data is roughly 10 years old and I know that the DMDC has current data? With that said, can I still publish it? My goal is to do a follow-up research thereafter and perhaps compare my findings.
Do the follow-up research and then submit the whole thing. Because then you can talk about what you did 10 years ago, and then you can say, well, I did this 10 years ago, but look at it now. To put up 10 years old, I don't think anybody's going to accept that. Next, please.
Next question is, how much did you have to pay to publish?
I think it was $250. I think it was because of processing fee and all that nonsense. And I'm going to get that, and I'm going to get into all of that in the next slide. But for some reason, open access journals charge you. The ones like Springer or the APA or all these other hoity-toity journals, they don't. But because they don't, and because they're not necessarily open access, they can pick and choose who they want. Next, please.
Okay, and then with the student that asked about the 10-year-old research, it cut out a little bit for her. So if you could just repeat some of that.
Sure. Research that's 10 years old is old. You would not be able to use that in your dissertation unless it was seminal work. So what I would suggest is do your follow-up, and then you'll have something to compare and contrast. Then you can put the 10 years in and say, well, this is what I did 10 years ago, but look at the follow-up that I did now and look at the difference. So you can do that. But if you wanted to take a chance and submit the 10-year-old research, who knows, they may take it. But I don't think they would. But again, I don't know every journal. So it's possible there is a journal out there that would take it. Next, please.
The next question is, I am just starting my doctoral program. I am a mile away from even starting my research. Is there something I should do with an eye toward eventually publishing?
Could you repeat that, Pam? It cut out a little.
Yes. I am just starting my doctoral program. I am a mile away from even starting my research. Is there something I should do with an eye toward eventually publishing?
Pick a topic that's very trendy, something that you know that when you get to your dissertation in 3 or 4 years, it's still going to be something that's hot, something that's talked about, something that's important to society. Next, please.
The next question is, can you add additional findings to your current dissertation that is published?
Can you add? So if something is published, can you add to it? If you want, you could simply write into it and then resubmit it and have it republished, because it's no longer the same article that you wrote for publication. You've changed it by adding something, so you could get it published a second time. I've seen that many times. In fact, in my own research, when I was citing people, I saw multiple authors that were republishing their work several times. They just added more to it. For instance, if I did a qualitative study, if I want to add a quantitative measure to that, I can add it and then republish both, and it'll still be a separate publication because I've added something to it.
Great. The next question is, when will you provide another session of this type?
That's up to the Center of Teaching and Learning.
Well, we can compare schedules and discuss afterwards.
Okay.
The next question is, can you suggest a good open access education journal?
Oh, Omni files are very good. That's the one. They have an enormous selection of journals across schools and across thought. Now, I don't know if it would take business. I don't know if it would take education, but OmniFile is the one that I subscribe to and the one I publish with, because again, I wanted something that would go across the globe because of my topic, because of the importance of HIV in countries like Africa, in countries that are tight-lipped like China and Russia, that if a student in Russia or a student in China or a student in these countries that prohibit free access, they can still get this article if they want to read something about people that are HIV positive. And that's what I wanted to do. So it all depends on what you're looking to do with your work. Because my work was so important, I felt that it was imperative for me to have open access. Next, please.
The next thing, so the student is clarifying, the data is 10 years old, but I completed my dissertation 2 years ago. Oh, we lost you again.
Am I there?
There you are.
Okay. Yeah, I lost you too.
Oh, okay. So the comment is, the data is 10 years old, but I completed my dissertation 2 years ago. So the student wanted to provide clarification that she completed her dissertation 2 years ago, but the data that she had used is 10 years old.
You know what? It doesn't hurt to try. All they can say is, no, we don't want it. That, you know what I mean? I mean, you're taking your chances with data that's 10 years old. Even though you finished 2 years ago, since the data is 10 years old, take your chances. I mean, the only thing they can say to you is, I'm sorry, it's too old. Next, please.
All right, the next question is, do you advise to do a quantitative or qualitative study?
Oh, I'm going to give you a personal opinion on that because I can't speak for the school. I can't speak for other teachers. I love qualitative work. And let me tell you something, qualitative is actually more difficult than quantitative. In quantitative, you do a survey, you get numbers, you push it into SPSS, voila, there's your answer. With qualitative, you have to ask questions, you have to do interviews, you have to record them, and then you got to go through all those words and all those interviews, transcribe them, put them into the software. And what I did is I did a manual analysis besides putting it into the software. So I still like qualitative because I like to hear what people have to say. People are more than just surveys. People are more than just numbers. And I want to get their stories. I want to get where they are at. And you can't do that with a survey. You can only do that with qualitative. Thank you.
All right, we have a couple more questions here. The first is, if my PhD study is on vocational education, could that go into OmniFile?
You would have to look that up because, again, I was only interested in psychology and HIV and AIDS. So I specifically sought out journals for that. You would have to go into that and just put in like education and see what comes up for you.
Great, and then we've got a couple of comments agreeing that qualitative is harder. And
Yes.
then Dr. Fonseca shared, Emerald Publishing is one that I like a lot. The first articles I published was at IACIS, and she provided a website, and IABPAD. And that's also in the chat. So attendees can also click there for additional information as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And anybody that's got suggestions, keep putting them in the chat box because this is being recorded and Tran will put it all up so that anybody can go to it and look up the websites.
Absolutely. And then one last question here. This one fell through. I am in my second PhD year, and I am a member of a number of academic writing groups across social media. I see a lot of chatter about publishing articles before their doctoral degree is completed. Is this just a career tenure track benefit, or can this practice assist in dissertation publishing down the line?
That's a good question. That is really a good question. I chose to wait until I was finished. I wanted to bring to the table a completed piece of research, because once you do that, other people will seek you out. If you give something that's not completed, I don't know if other people are going to take it as seriously. And I don't know what it is for tenure. I don't know all I knew is that for me, I wanted to give in a complete research article. I cannot speak for anybody else or what anybody else chooses to do. But I can tell you that where I'm teaching at St. Joseph's College Online, the president of the entire college, and there's 2 campuses and an online campus, he wrote me personally congratulating me for getting published. So it really, and he actually read the article that I submitted. So I think it's important that when you're publishing, that you publish a complete whole article. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see a couple of raised hands. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll be sure to address your questions. And then we did have one just come through. What software tool do you suggest for analyzing qualitative case study data, considering cost being a factor as well as being a non-tech researcher?
You're going to have to repeat that because I went in and out again.
The question is, what software tool do you suggest for analyzing qualitative case study data, considering cost being a factor as well as being a non-tech researcher?
The easiest one in my experience is In Vivo. Now, they're all expensive, every one of them. Because they all know about each other, it's sort of like Sears knows what Roebuck is doing, what Macy is doing, what Neiman Marcus is doing. They all purposely stay on the same level so that no matter which one you choose, you may be within $10 or $20 of each other. But I used In Vivo because the learning curve was very, very gentle. Some of them have a steep learning curve that you may not understand. In Vivo, I learned in 30 minutes. But remember, I also did manual analysis of my data. In fact, I put a picture up of the Post-it notes that I had all over my living room wall, because that's what they did in the old days when they didn't have software. And I wanted to check out and make sure for extra rigor that the software found what I found. So I did a double to make sure that my research was solid and sound. Thank you.
And then one additional tidbit about In Vivo. In Vivo is actually available in the University Services module in NCU1, so students here do have access to it already. And Martha, it's spelled N-V-I-V-O.
Yes, when I did my
sorry.
When I did my dissertation, I had to pay for it. So I was a little ticked off when NCU offered it for free after I graduated. I was really ticked off about that. But
you can come back and do another one.
You know something? I may just take you up on that. But what I wanted to say to students out there is that use the software. The fact that NCU chose In Vivo tells you that it is not difficult to use. NCU is not going to choose the hardest software for the student to understand so that they're doing their dissertation 10 years down the road. They picked the best software, in my opinion. And I've read Dr. Linda Bloomberg's book, who is in the School of Education, who is a teacher in this school. And she also highly recommended In Vivo, but she also said, do a manual analysis to make sure the software jives with what you found manually. It's always good to do it on your own because the qualitative software is not nearly as good as SPSS in quantitative. Next, please.
Great. We've got a couple of comments saying what a great tool In Vivo was. And then another question is, going back to publishing, should you start a relationship with the publisher early on?
No, because they don't know who you are. And again, they're not publishers, they're editors. Your research is published in their journal, but there is the editor who then gives your work to peer reviewers without your name. So your editor doesn't know who you are because all identifying factors from your research is removed. No name, no school affiliation, nothing. So it's like me giving you a paper without any name, and you're going to say, well, who did this? Well, I can't tell you because you're reviewing it. That's how it works in the academic journals. And just for the record, I still have a couple of more slides to do, so we can move on. Okay. If there aren't too many questions left.
There actually aren't any, so it's a great time to move on.
Perfect. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is where I'd like the dinosaur to bite all of this. Where do you begin? Well, I'll tell you what, and where do you find journals? I put those together. You find journal, and this is what I did. I went to my references in my dissertation. I found the Journal of AIDS and Clinical Research in my dissertation. And I thought, this looks rather interesting. I was rejected by Stigma and Behavior, and I was rejected by, oh, I can't remember.
We just lost you.
Am I still there?
Yep, here you are. Now you were cutting in and out for just a few seconds there.
Yep, and I will continue to cut in and out because my internet stinks. I went to my dissertation references. Look at the journals in your references and pick something out that you think is affiliated with what you're doing. That's where I found my journal. And as I said, it was AIDS and behavior I was rejected by, and stigma and health. That's it. Those were both APA publications. Now, what I didn't realize is that the APA only takes 20% of all submissions. That's another big factor. Is the journal that you're soliciting, what is the percentage of publications do they take? Now, the Journal of AIDS and Behavior takes 60 to 80%. So that meant to me that I stood a better chance of getting accepted than the other two journals I mentioned, because they only take 20%. I didn't realize this because nobody at NCU tells you this. There is no class, there is nothing in the Center for Teaching and Learning, there is nothing in the Academic Success Center that tells you, well, if you want to learn about publishing your dissertation, come here. You are on your own. So let me tell you something. I was working in the dark, and my chair, Dr. Michelle Ackerman, is on my publication because she had more experience than I did. So I added her because she was my chair. And who next to me knew my research almost as good as me? She did. So I did not mind sharing it with her. But even she didn't tell me about these pitfalls and the promises. She did not tell me about this. You have to look and see what percentage of the journal looks at others' research. I got a 60 to 80% that told me I have a good chance of getting published. In the American Psychological Association, those two journals I mentioned, 20%, I had a 1 in 5 chance of getting in. That's bad. So that's where I found my journal. How much work and the length? Well, that goes specific by journal. Some journals will tell you we want 3,500 words. Other journals will tell you we want 20 pages double spaced. So I can't answer for your specific dissertation, for your specific interest, for your specific journal. Education, it may be 25 pages. Business, it may be 10 pages. I don't know. So the length varies from journal to journal. In fact, from the Journal of Stigma and Health to AIDS and Behavior, that would totally different requirements for those journals. Totally different. They're both by the American Psychological Association, but they have two different editors, and each editor requires something different. And they have free rein to do whatever they want with their journal. So the editor is given that journal, and then the editor makes up all the rules. And I was told unequivocally, your research will not review well in our journal. I was told that. So you can imagine how great I felt when I was told that my research would not show up well. And I just dusted myself off, washed my hands and face, and moved on to the next journal. And had the Journal of AIDS and Clinical Research not accepted me, I would have kept moving on till somebody did. I was not accepting no, not for a topic like mine. I was not accepting it. What goes in and what doesn't? Well, there are 5 areas, and I'm going to say it slow, so if you want to write it down and you don't want to come back to this webinar, that's fine. It's introduction, method, data, results, discussion, and conclusion. Now, that was for me. Your journal that you look up may be something different. But they don't want a literature review. They don't, unless you're doing a literature review on your topic, they don't want a literature review. You could take your literature review and squash it into your introduction. And then the methodology is another important thing. How did you do what you did? They want to know this. I did every page so that I could take my results, squash it down to 5 pages, and I could give that almost in total. And what I did is I took many of the quotes that they gave me and I included that in with the work. So I did maybe like 3 pages instead of 5 for the introduction, 2 pages instead of 5 for the method, And I devoted a lot of my space to the results because you want to show your readers, this is what I found. And I wanted to give them the most complete picture. And then the discussion, you could knock down that discussion to 2 or 3 pages, and then the conclusion is a paragraph. The submission process, oh God, that was really something. It took me 6 and 7 hours to do each time. What they'd want is that you submit the abstract separate, completely separate. You don't submit the abstract in with the paper. At least for me, in all 3 journals that I submitted, the abstract goes in separate, because some of them will read the abstract and go, well, you know, I read your abstract and I think this is garbage. This is not going to do well. Others will read the abstract, they're not sure, and then they'll read the 20 pages or whatever that you submitted. And another thing, leave out the table of contents. They don't want it. Leave out all the appendices. They don't want them. So the appendices get left out, the table of contents gets left out. And in my journal specifically, they said, you are limited to 100 references. I gave them 82. So again, your journal may take 120. My journal only took up to 100. So again, it is that specific to that specific journal. The submission process, as I said, you have to submit each section separately. And you have to go through this A, B, C, D, E, F, G list. You write your name, there's the title page with your information and any other author, the address of the school, your student email, because they want an edu. They don't want a gmail.com. They want to see that you're affiliated with a university or an institution of learning. So do not send them a gmail.com. They don't like that. Again, that's for me. I'm assuming in a situation like that, they want to know it's from a school. Submission, that's the submission process. It was very fun because you have to do everything A, B, C, D, E. You just don't take the 20 pages and say, here it is, and send the whole thing in. The title page goes first, totally separate. The abstract goes in, totally separate. The paper goes in, totally separate. And then my results had to be totally separate from the paper. Even though I sent in the paper, I had to pull out the results, put it in another Word document, and send that in separately. That was what I had to do. That may not be what you have to do. Response time, a week to a month. They can take however long they want because you're not the only one submitting. And again, when they're doing the peer review, they may look at that and go, this is crap. Send it back and go, sorry, we've rejected you. Or, for instance, in my case, we need you to add a table. And I'm like, are you kidding me? A table? And I had a specific table that they wanted that had to do with stigma, but they didn't tell me where to find it. Thankfully, Michelle knew what that table was. She found it and she added it into the paper for me. Now, again, because she's in the publication with me, I said, Michelle, do a little bit of work. Come on, your name is on it too. I don't know what table they're referring to. She did. So I would highly recommend to all of you students out there, get your chair to go in with you and refuse you your chair or your subject matter expert to go in with you, or both. You can do that too. I chose to use only my chair because my subject matter expert is no longer at NCU. So I couldn't ask him. Rejection, awful. The first rejection, I cried. I'm a grown man, I cried because I said, how could this be rejected? How could the American Psychological Association reject me? Well, they did. But I found out then that they only took 20% of the journals submitted. So I thought, okay, now I feel a little better. I'm in the 8% range. Okay, 8% of people, I can accept that. You know what, Jim? You're not a seasoned researcher. They don't know you from a hole in the wall. I did this when I was a student. So, you know, move on, dust yourself off. Acceptance. It was the best Christmas gift ever. I was accepted on December the 18th, a week before Christmas Day. Doesn't get better than that. I see it's 12:45. Can we go on to the next page, Tran, so I can finish up? There's only 3 or 4 pages. Oh, we're done. Okay, perfect. We're done. Okay, now we can go to questions. Perfect.
All right. So a couple came through while you were speaking. The first is, do academic journals publicly disclose their acceptance rates?
No. That's why I couldn't find out. I had to delve into the process. And it was only when the editor wrote me back, because I asked him, I said, what is your acceptance rate? And he told me 20%. So no, they do not advertise that, because if you are a journal and you're saying, well, we only take 20%, personally, I'm not going to waste my time with you. I'm going to go to a journal that takes 60 or 80%. I'm not wasting my time with you. I don't care if you're part of the American Psychological Association. I'm not wasting my time because you're likely not going to accept me. Next, please.
We had an attendee that had to leave early, and they wanted to let you know that it was a great topic and that you were an excellent presenter.
Oh, whoever they are, thank you.
And then another question that came through is, how long on average does it take to get published once your dissertation is completed? Is there a limit on the number of journals you can apply with for publishing?
No, you can apply to as many journals as you want, provided one at a time. If you provide to the Journal of AIDS and Behavior, you have to wait till they reject you until you can apply to the Journal of AIDS and Clinical Research or AIDS Care or whatever. So you have to wait. And that's what is the most time consuming. Until they reject you, if you're in process, you cannot submit to another journal till you're rejected by the journal you've submitted to. That's an annoyance, in my opinion. And the system needs to change. Next, please.
And then the other part of the student's question was, how long on average does it take to get published once your dissertation is completed?
It took me about 5 weeks. But don't forget, I waited a year before I started the publishing process because I needed a break from the dissertation. I didn't want to look at it. But if you are of the personality that you just finished and you want to go for it, go for it. But again, it took me 5 weeks. It may take you 5 months. I don't know. Each journal is different in their requirements and their processing time. Next, please.
That was the last one, but I'm sure we'll have some more roll in. And while we have a little bit of a gap, again, I wanted to thank you for your time today, for coming back and sharing your experience with everybody here today. And I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. It's been great just watching your journey. And so just keeping us posted, because we love to hear what's going on with our students.
I wanted to mention one of the things to students that's really important.
Sure.
When I sent in an abstract to be part of the poster session for the American Psychological Association conference in Washington, D.C. this coming August. And it was Dr. Michelle Ackerman that pushed. And I said to her, I don't know what to do with this. I said, you mean to tell me I would just take a... So we talked for like an hour, and she decided that we could do something with a specific part of my dissertation, focus on that and present that as a poster. So we chose spirituality, because spirituality, HIV stigma and resilience is an important topic. But my research found just the opposite. Only 2 of the 12 participants decided that spirituality was important. So my research found the total opposite of what most research found before me. So she thought that would be a good topic to present. And when that was presented in, I think it was November, because of the note that it was accepted for presenting. That's another important thing you can do with your dissertation. Present posters. You don't have to present where you're standing up in front of 500 people, because again, you're a novice researcher. But you can present a poster, which means that at the convention, you will simply stand by the poster that you bring stand by it, and people come to you and ask you questions. That's all you have to do. And for doing that, I'm getting $2,000 for being accepted. I didn't think I was going to get accepted because my population is highly marginalized. And there's multiple stigmatizations for being gay, for being Black, for being Hispanic, and for being positive. So I didn't think the APA was going to bother with it, and they did. So if there's a specific topic within your topic that you find the results to be fascinating, you could present that as a poster. So, and I don't know what the prize would be or the award, each is different. But, you know, in education, I know they have educational conferences. You can present posters for education of a specific aspect of your dissertation that you found fascinating and work on that. And the poster is only one page. It's a poster. It's literally a poster. And that's all you have to do. So there's no more research to be done. You just take the existing research that you did and put it in a template form that NCU provides, because I have to use their template for it because I'm representing the school. And you simply would present that, stand by your poster. I don't know if they give you a chair to sit by or if you stand up, and people come to you and read your poster and go, oh, I have a question based on your poster. And that's exactly all it is. So that if you tend to be a little shy and you don't want to get up in front of 1,000 people, you can do that. And that also means a lot. That's going to look good on your CV. Just as good. You're presenting in front of a national conference that's held once a year in the United States. That's big. And I sent that into the schools that I teach at, and they were, oh my God, they were like, oh my, this is amazing. This is incredible. So do that. If you don't want to, if you're too shy to get published or you don't want to be bothered, you can create a poster. There's many things you can do with your research, but don't let it languish in ProQuest. Nobody's going to find it there. I wanted my work to be found because I worked too damn hard to let it just languish in ProQuest. I knew how much work I did. I was not going to let it stay there at all. I wanted it out there. I wanted people to read it. I wanted it open access. Not only did I get published, I'm presenting. And these two events happened within a month of each other. One happened on December 18th when I got published, and the congratulations that I was accepted to present was January 25th. So it was exactly 5 weeks. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. There's no reason why you can't. Go to one of your people in NCU, go to your chair, go to your subject matter expert, have them collaborate with you, have them help you. It's okay if you put their name on it. You're still the principal researcher. The first person who's noted on the paper is the principal researcher. So when you see 6 people in a citation, it's the first author that's the principal researcher. That's what counts. So if your name is first, they know in academia that you are the principal researcher, even if there are 6 people after you. So you can do that. And if I can do it, you can do it. There's no reason why you can't. You can take something and do something. Do something. Are there any other?
Yes, a few came through. We have a couple of attendees interested in finding conferences to present posters at. So how did you go about finding yours?
Well, in my case, I'm a member of the American Psychological Association. So it's very easy because I get notified. And I can tell you right now, when I go to that conference in August and I present, I'm going to have 100 business cards on me because people are going to say, would you like to do research with me? Would you like to do a presentation? Would you like to do a webinar? Would you like to teach an online course? Would you like to visit the campus and present? Would you? This is going to lead to a lot of stuff. All you need is one break. And that, believe it or not, that break didn't come with me getting published. It came with the poster.
Nope. We lost.
Yeah, in a conference for IT, a conference for IT, a conference for education. Look and see what's available. Talk to your chair. Talk to people in your department that you're interested in taking your research further. That's what I did.
Great.
Next, please.
The next question is, are poster presentations for post-dissertation?
A presentation for well, again, I presented here in December. I presented my research on HIV the day after World AIDS Day. Again, I picked a topic that I was very passionate about because I lost 100 people to AIDS. So I chose a topic that was very personal to me. I knew it was important because the CDC has declared HIV stigma a public health problem, because people are getting infected because they don't want to tell anybody that they're HIV positive, and then they go around infecting other people because they're not on medications or they have fallen out of care. I was passionate about that topic long before I came back to school with NCU. Do your research. You don't have to go to the library anymore. You can just sit at night when you have nothing to do. Instead of playing a video game, instead of watching the Real Housewives of whatever, or watching a reality show, go on the computer and find out what difference you can make in the world. That's what I did. And I found out that I'm making a big difference. I attended a meeting at the United Nations, for Pete's sake, based on my research. So, I mean, there's a lot of outlets for you. But you know what? Nobody's going to come to your house and knock on the door and say, "Hi, Mary Smith, we need you. Hi, Jim Jones, we need you." You got to go out there and seek it. You got to push your work. It's your work. You worked for it. I'm pushing my work all the time. I push my work here at NCU. I post all the time. My work is important, and I broke my back to do it. So if you feel the same way, do it. Nobody's stopping you. Do it. Don't make excuses. Do it. Next, please.
That is it as far as questions. We've got a lot of comments in the chat, thanking you for your time, congratulating you for your accomplishments, and really just sharing that you have been a wealth of knowledge and that everybody appreciates what you've been doing. Let's see.
Well, I'm not going away, so I will continue to post. You can rest assured that when I go to that convention, I'm going to be live streaming some of it. I'm going to take pictures of, I cannot show you the poster. I cannot show you what I'm doing. I am not allowed until I present it to the body in August. After that, rest assured, NCU is going to have 1,000 pictures of my poster.
We would love to see it. And then we just have a few minutes left. So I just wanted to remind everybody that I am currently recording today's session, and I will have it posted in the Commons in the Center for Teaching and Learning within the next 24 hours or so, along with James's PowerPoint presentation here. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to him. He's very present in the comments, so feel free to send him a private message and continue on with the conversation.
And if you want to make it a public message so that other people will learn from it, it can be a public message also, because the way you're reading it, 100 other people are reading it, even if they don't comment. So I don't take offense when people don't comment to my work, even if nobody says anything. When views. And I do have dissertation tips. I have a 48-page document that I have been sending out to students, and it's been uploaded in May of 2017, actually. I uploaded all of my comments and tips. And I also have a template in an Excel spreadsheet where I kept all of my research and how I delineated the different topics for my dissertation. I created my own spreadsheet, and that's also been uploaded. So if you look under files, you'll find my stuff, because I'm all over the place. And I wanted to help out students. So you can find my stuff. And if you want a personal copy, send me an email and I'll send you a copy of what I have.
Thank you so much for all of your support. And thank you everybody that attended here today. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope to see you at the next webinar. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, James. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I apologize for the internet messes.
It happens. We'll see you next time.